Dragonblade Authors Unplugged. We have 2 newly minted USA Today bestsellers. I'm very excited about that.
So are we.
Yeah.
We have Anna Markland and Aubrey Wynne.
Hi.
And
Hi.
we're so glad that you could join us today, ladies, and also very excited for your new titles. That's fantastic. I know there was a lot of work that went into the collection to get it to hit the list like that. So something you should feel very, very good about. But this week's releases, we're actually a little slow this week, so we only had one release. Anna, you had a book come out on Tuesday. Is that right?
Yeah.
Slow and Steady Wins the Earl from the Earls Are Wild series. I giggle every time I do an ad for for that series because I think the series title is so funny. Covers for those are great too. So can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Sure. It's the third book in the series, and I was going to say it's the final book, but there are characters in the Halloween book that we just published, and also in the Christmas Star of Wonder, that use characters from that series, Earls Are Wild. So I can't say it's the absolute last book. However, it is book 3 of what was intended to be a trilogy. I tend to do that. I start off with trilogies and I end up with four or 5 books in a series.
Well, the characters need stories. So.
Well, they keep telling you, I need my own story. But anyway, in this book 3, Slow and Steady Wins the Earl, the star of that is the heroine is Patsy Crompton, who is the daughter of the family who appears as a child in books 1 and 2. But in book 3, she's all grown up and really anxious to have a London season. I should preface this by saying that the books are actually not set in London. They're set in the north of England, in Lancashire. So she wants to go and have this season because her mother never had a season, although her mother is a countess for various reasons. So she's looking forward to having this season. But she wants to go for the fun of it. She doesn't want to go looking for a man. She's not yet interested. And Patsy, through books 1 and 2, has always been a bit of a rule breaker. She's kind of an independent miss. And so she's quite sure she doesn't really want to be bound to a husband. That's not why she wants to go. But then, of course, she meets a wonderful man who's an earl. But Nikolai, whose mother is Russian, that's why he has a Russian name, is a stickler for rules. And Patsy's never been able to follow rules. So it's kind of the plot is, of course, the fireworks that go off between them. But also because of his Russian heritage, there's a priceless objet d'art that's involved that gets stolen. And so part of the plot is also trying to rescue and retrieve this priceless object that once belonged to Catherine the Great.
Oh, wow. So we have a mystery in amongst the love story too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. I love the tagline for that series too. That he likes to follow the rules, and she's never met a rule that she followed, kind of thing too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, there's inconvenient men that show up when you don't want them.
Yeah, and he happens to be, of course, the world's best dancer. So he just
of course
sweeps her off her feet the first time that they dance the waltz, because this is actually set, sort of towards the end of the Regency. So the waltz is a much more mainstream and much more accepted form of dancing. So they do all the usual things. 2 of the main characters from book 2, Wild Earl Chase, are also featured in this book because they act as her chaperones in London.
Oh, great! Then we get to catch up with characters that we already love.
That's right. Yeah.
I love that when that happens. And then you have side characters from the series that show up in both the Halloween anthology.
That's right.
And
yeah, in
also
the Halloween
one,
the little Halloween novella was called Blind Faith, and it's about a hero of the Waterloo battle who happens to be a close friend and fellow officer of the hero of the first book in the series, Every Earl Has a Silver Lining. But unfortunately, Boyd Sheridan, Major Sheridan, was blinded at Waterloo. So he moves north to be to an old medieval property that's fairly close to where the Earl of Farnworth lives, in order to be, you know, at least close to somebody that he knows and somebody who can perhaps help him. But of course, the property's haunted. So that's where it fits into the, and it's actually based on a hall in Lancashire that is haunted by a white lady. But I didn't call my story White Lady because there seem to be so many white ladies in that book, in that collection. I thought, so I called mine Blind Faith. And the girl who ends up being his heroine is a girl who's a sort of nanny come governess to the Earl of Farnworth's children, but she's become interested in the newly invented night writing for blind people. So she goes to this haunted hall to help him learn the, and of course they fall in love and happily ever after and all that. But in the
aside, you know,
in the Christmas book, you know, the Christmas book stories are based on Christmas carols. Mm-hmm. And the one I chose was In the Bleak Midwinter.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Oh, it's by, it was actually a poem by Christina Rossetti. It was turned into a hymn. And it's actually a bit nonsensical because, of course, where Jesus was born, there would never have been a bleak midwinter. But anyway, so this story, Boyd and Amelia, who of course now have got together, you know, they're married man and wife, and it's Christmas time and she's going to have a baby, but there happens to be the worst blizzard in living memory that happens just as she's going to have this child. So he sets off in the middle of this blizzard to try and get help, and so it's the story of that traumatic experience for him. He's in the meantime regained the sight in one of his eyes, so he's still blind in one eye, and he's out in this blizzard trying to get help for his wife.
I'm going to hope that there's a happily ever after at the end of that, and assume because it's in the holiday collection that there is.
Well, you have to wait and see. Eh? But I mean, to be quite honest, that's why I write romance, because I can't stand these books that don't have a happy ending. It's got to have a happy ending, otherwise forget about it.
Yeah, if I'm going to spend that much time, I want to feel good at the end of it. So, So Aubrey, you have you don't have a book in the holiday collection this year, but you did have a story in the Halloween collection. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
I had it's called Percy's Perdition, and it's about the Earl of Carmarthen, who's a very businessman. He's quite the businessman. So everything he does just has to push forward his family and the title. So he doesn't take any emotion into his decisions. And his wife, Ellie, is the good woman. And she sees when he buys out a factory and allows or invests in a factory, and the person who's running it is cutting wages, and she sees the suffering of the workers. So she goes behind his back with her pin money and tries to fix his mistakes, because she knows there's, you know, a good heart down in there someplace, because that's why she loves him. But he sees it as business and she sees it as people. So I won't tell you a lot about what happens in the story, but let's just say he gets his comeuppance and she is there to help him through it. So
there's a ghost, right?
Yeah. Oh, yes. The ghost is the wicked Lord Littleton, who was an authentic lord, and he died in the 1790s. He had seen a bird come in through his window, and it turned into a white lady who told him he would die in 3 days. Well, of course, he thought this was silly. So he told everybody he's going to bilk the ghost. And they said, well, you know, you're pretty wicked. You gamble and you've ruined all these reputations. And no, he's going to bilk the ghost. Well, 3 days later, just before midnight, He just drops dead in his bed. So this same bird and white lady comes to visit our Earl of Carmarthen one night and tells him the same thing. And of course, he poo-poos it, but then you'll have to see what happens after that. So
it's kind of like a Christmas Carol with with you must change your ways and do better, but with a bird and a white lady instead. That feels a little bit easier to believe. So
it's all about karma. So with the Earl of Carmarthen, I thought, that was a nice.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. So your most recent Dragonblade book is Bonnie Pretender, is that right?
Yes.
And that's a Castle MacNaughton?
A Castle MacNaughton romance. Mm-hmm. It's book 3. As Anna, it was supposed to be a trilogy, but there's another couple who was from the first book. In the first book, Fenella's English, and she comes in. She goes to Glasgow, where her grandmother lives, and meets Lachlan MacNaughton, who is there running a weaving business for his family. She brings her maid along, Rose, and who meets another Colin, another cousin of the MacNaughtons. So that will probably be book 4. So Bonnie Pretender is about Bridget, the sister. There's 2 brothers and a sister. Lachlan is in the first book. Brody finds his match in the second book. And this is Bridget, who's been raised by her brothers. Their father died when they were young. So she's pretty good at bow and arrow and shooting and riding horses. And she takes care of the animals. And men just aren't on her priority list. It's not that she doesn't want a family. She just hasn't found anybody that will accept her exactly the way she is, and she tends to run them off. So
you can't blame a girl for that.
No. So her mother packs her off to London to stay with some family and to kind of smooth the rough edges. And so she's agreed that she would go, but she decides she's just going to learn, have a good time, and then go home unattached. But enters Lord Rains. And Frank has just found out an awful secret on his mother's deathbed. She has a deathbed confession. So he's in London. He's tired of being lonely. He's been taking care of his mom, and he is actively searching for a wife. So I kind of like that twist where, it's actually the man's not running away from the marriage. It's So, and they happen to come across each other, and the romance blooms from there.
So it's so interesting that both of you have heroines who don't want to be bothered by being married. I kind of love that idea, and I think when there's so much for a woman to have to give up in that time, it makes sense that a strong heroine would be like, maybe not, until they meet the exact one. So.
Just thinking a bit more about this idea of trilogies growing like Topsy. I think when an author creates a world that it takes a lot of thinking to create a world and all the details about it. It's sort of too tempting to leave that world and not continue on with it with different characters.
Yeah. Are there things
in my very first book, Conquest? It was sort of meant in the beginning to be a trilogy. Well, it's now 12 books. It's like you can't leave that world alone. You've got to, and I like to follow families through different generations. So
we get to see the babies and the children of the people that came before.
The only problem with that is that, of course, you have to kill characters off because you can't follow generation to generation and
not have people die on you.
A lot of people, your favorite characters die off. So that's one of the drawbacks. But I think it's too tempting when you've created this world and you feel comfortable with it, and you know the characters, and you've got to know them. You want to keep telling their story, or the story of their descendants, and the different generations that come along.
That makes perfect sense. I think that's one of the reasons we like to read too, is to be able to escape to a different world. So it makes perfect sense that when you find some place you've created that you like to be, that you want to be there more often.
Yeah, and I
Well,
think when you're invested in a family, like you and McNaughton family, that when readers get invested in a family, they want to know what happens to these different characters.
It
Aubrey,
always it always amazes me, the characters that pop up while you're writing.
Yeah.
So while I have the McNaughton family and I've got the two brothers and the sisters, by the third book, these other characters have just appeared and demanded to be introduced. And so then they start to grow on you too. And then it just kind of, you go from 3 books to 12.
Yeah.
So I had a little boy just emerge when I was writing Bonnie Pretender. And there's a scene with some highwaymen, and there's a little boy, and his name is Boyle. And that's all he knew, was that his name was Boyle. But he ends up becoming part of their family. And it's just interesting how they just appear. It's like they've always been hiding in the background, and they're, oh, look at me.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like when sometimes you insinuate a piece of, like, an object into a story, and you don't really know why you've done that. It's just some insignificant thing. Like in one of my Viking books, I introduced this old chair that the heroine was really very fond of, and because it belonged to her father. She was actually an illegitimate child, and she, that was the only thing she had of her father. Well, that chair became like the major focus of the book, which I never intended it to be in the first place. So sometimes you don't even know why you're doing a thing, and then it just becomes, as you say, it becomes important, and it helps to grow the story.
So, do either of you do anything to help you get into the world when you write? Rituals or things that you follow to make it easier to get into your writing, or to immerse yourself into what you're doing?
Well, as you see, I have many of my covers on the wall behind me, so that's kind of part
and
of
Aubrey
my
has a Christmas tree already.
Yeah,
I do.
Good for you.
It's not finished. I just got it up, but yeah, it's November, so I'm there.
So I guess that's, my little inspiration, if you like, behind me is my covers, and helps me get in the mood, I suppose. But I just, I mean, if I didn't spend most of my day writing, I don't know what the heck I would do with myself, to be honest. I mean, it's my job. So although I don't look at it as a job, it's, it's something I really, really enjoy doing. So I don't really get into any sort of special frame of mind. And at the moment, I'm writing a medieval story, but I'm also writing a Tudor story at the same time. So that can get a bit tricky, Like the other day, I was reading through to edit some of the chapters, and I discovered that I had given the hero of one book the eye color of the hero from the other book. No, he's not the one with the sapphire colored eyes. That's in the other book.
When I started writing the McNaughton series, the McNaughton is my clan from Scotland. It was my grandfather's clan. So
cool.
It is pretty cool. So the castle that's based in there was a real castle, and it's a real area, and it's really where the McNaughton clan came from. And the insignia for the book, I don't know if you can see this in here, but this right here is actually the clan badge. So, and
wow.
Yeah, and then the strip along here is actually the colors of the McNaughton tartan. So,
I wondered about the tartan when I was looking at the covers to do the ads and stuff. I wondered about that one. It's a pretty one.
So I just kind of sink back into my pictures of Scotland and think about my grandfather and go through some of that, and then I'm ready. So.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I held up doing the Regency series. That's the Earls of Wild are my first Regency series, because I'm usually like medieval Highlander Viking stuff. So I took the opportunity to set those books, those Earls of Wild books in Lancashire, because I was born in Lancashire. So, and that was the first time I had ever set a story in Lancashire, because Lancashire doesn't really figure much in medieval times or even Tudor times. So, and I truly enjoyed that. It was like revisiting my past and my childhood. I mean, I don't live in Lancashire now, I live in Canada. But it was like going back in time and
Yeah.
thinking about places that I knew so well, from growing up. So it was more of a personal connection to those books, really, than to any of my other books.
Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely to get to spend time somewhere you love.
Mhm.
Aubrey, you held up the Mary McNaughton book. You're not in the holiday collection, but that's your holiday book that's part of the same series as A Bonnie Pretender. Is that right?
Yes, that's about the parents,
Oh, cool.
Colin and Peggy, and how they met. And it's based around an old feud, of course, because they're in Scotland. And Callum ends up coming across a man that's drowning in an icy lake, and he saves him, and he happens to be from another clan, from the feuding clan. So he saves him, and the man from the clan comes back with his daughter, wanting to, make good on being saved. So, he says, "Here, now we're even," and it goes from there.
Well, I mean, save a guy from a lake, get a bride. Who knew?
As you said, Aubrey, it's Scotland.
It is.
Ladies, what's coming up for you? What are you working on next?
Well, as I said, I'm working on this Tudor series. It's intended to be a 3-book series, but we know how that goes. It's called Rough Wooing, but it's RUFF, not Rough Wooing. So the first book that I'm working on right now is called Ruffled Feathers, and it follows a family of goldsmiths in London in the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, and his name is Dominic. So he's Dominic by name and dominant by character, but he meets a Venetian woman. But he's also a spy for Francis Walsingham, who of course was Elizabeth's spy master. So he meets this Venetian woman whose father is involved in a plot against Elizabeth I, and she's not the submissive kind at all. She's a haughty Venetian woman, but the two of them, of course, the sparks fly when they meet. So his quandary is how to stop her father's plot against Elizabeth, but not to implicate her, because of course he falls in love with her.
To get the pesky future father-in-law out of the way, and without messing things up for the daughter.
But of course he risks his own life doing that, because if Francis Walsingham thinks that he's
complicit,
let the guy off the hook, then his own life would be forfeit. So it's rather interesting. Again, it's the first series I've written in the Tudor period. And I rather enjoy researching, different periods.
Yeah, can imagine. Aubrey, what's coming up for you?
Well, I'm almost finished with book 4 of the McNaughton romance. And then I've plotted out a book 5. In book 4, it'll be Fenella's maid, Rose, who is with Colin, a cousin of the McNaughtons. And in book 5, Rose has a brother who's was a pirate in the Britannia
series. Pirates too?
Well, he was a pirate in the Britannia series. And I'm like, he wants to be included in this too. So we're going to, of course, have, a female that's not a pirate. And I'm also plotting out a series for the story that was in the holiday series, the holiday anthology last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I won't talk too much about that now, but I am plotting out a 5-book series for that.
So there's lots of good stuff coming up for both of you. Great. Well, I'm so excited that you took the time to talk to us today. I really appreciate it, and I'm anxious to see the books that are coming up. If you're watching us, you have to make sure to join us next week for our 2 holiday collections. We're doing 2 release day parties on Thursday and Friday, and you can find the links in the Dragonblade reader group and also on the Dragonblade page. I hadn't mentioned it before, but if you have a chance, make sure you head to Amazon and click the yellow follow button for Aubrey's page and also for Anna's page. Follows on Amazon help the same way reviews do. So we appreciate our readers and we appreciate the time that you take to do those things for our authors. I'll pop the links to both A Bonnie Pretender and Slow and Steady Wins the Earl in the comments for the video, along with the 2 holiday collections, so you won't miss out on anything. Make sure you come back here next week, same time. We'll have as many of the authors from the holiday collections as want to join us, so it's probably going to be a bit raucous. So hopefully that will be fun for everybody, and I won't have to say much. I like those. So, ladies, thank you so much for joining us today. Congratulations on the USA Today bestseller.
Thank you.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a long time, a long held dream that's finally come true.
Yep. You have lots of cover back there to update. So,
well, this is it. And of course, our favorite cover designer is away in England at the moment, so she's going to have a ton of work when she comes back. If I could just add something, in these days of COVID, we don't get the chance. I live in Canada, so I mean, getting into the United States for me is pretty well impossible at the moment. Well, it's a bit easier now, but for 2 years I haven't been able to get together with fellow authors. So it's great to see Aubrey, and have a chance to chat with her and see what she looks like and that, because we've missed out on those personal connections.
Yeah, we were talking about that a couple of weeks ago when I signed off. I remember thinking it felt like being hungry for that. The retreats we can't do anymore, the conferences we've missed, the just getting together and sitting around with coffee and tea and hashing out ideas
that's right. Yeah.
Soon, hopefully soon.
Well, I've signed up for the retreat in next fall, so hopefully I'll be able to fly into the United States by then.
Oh, so much fun. That is so much fun.
It's somewhere out. It's a meeting that I've wanted to go to for years. And so hopefully this year actually next year I'll hopefully.
We're almost at the end of this year, so it's close.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. It's kind of scary, isn't it? Gosh, it's almost
so fast.
Almost Christmas, for goodness sake.
So
Aubrey's got her tree up. Good Lord.
I love my trees.
Yeah. Well, I used to, but I'm too old for that business now. It's like
I have a skinny one. I can pick it up, carry it into the back room, throw a bag over it. So, it's pretty easy for me.
Well, this is what I do. Oh, I don't feel too badly now, because that's exactly what I have mine in the garage all stored, all decorated, ready to go.
Yes,
Plug it up, plug it in.
Keep it simple.
Exactly.
The lights are the important part anyway. That's it.
That's right. That's right.
All right, ladies. Thanks again so much. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you.
And we'll see you all next week, same time.
Okay.
Bye-bye.